Let's talk a little bit more about Chapter 3. Let's talk about publicly available data sets. Here's another example that you can use for practice. You can go to data.hrsa.gov as an example. Usually, public data set websites will give you a choice of either directly downloading data files versus using some interactive tools on the site to build a data set and then export that data set. File types that you can typically export to are CSV, which is comma separated values. This is the format that I suggest you use, as it is interchangeable in almost every platform that you will use. SAS, which works usually just with the SAS statistical program, and ASCII format. There's typically documentation, such as a data dictionary or a file layout, and sometimes there are crosswalks that help you understand the data better. Take a look at the headers or the labels for the data sets and compare that to the documentation to learn more about those headers. And then think about, how do we know when we can join two disparate data sets? What types of joins can we do and why? What is your tool of choice? Acceptable use or reasons why you would choose different tools could be cost, which tool is allowed by your institution, what you have a valid user license for, which tool matches your current skill set, and the ease of use and speed to get things done. For this project to practice, you can use Excel, SQL Workbench, an academic license of Tableau, Microsoft Power BI, or other analytical tool, R, or Microsoft Access. How do you explore the dataset? Navigate to the URL, build your dataset, export the data to a file, to a CSV file, review the file types and documentation, import the data into the tool that you want to use to analyze the data, determine if you need to join multiple data sets or union the data. Join is to take two data sets that have one or more common columns and link them by that common column. A union is to take two or more data sets that have all matching columns, but with different values, and combine them into one file. So if there are separate data sets for different years, like 2014, 15, 16, and so on, and the columns or the structure of that data file is exactly the same, you would use a union instead of a join. If you have one data set that has hospital information, and there's a column in there for provider ID, and then you have another file that has national information, and there's a column in there that has provider ID, you could do a join with those two data sets. Methods to view your data. You can open the data in Excel, however, there are size limitations here. If a file is too big, you'll start to see Excel slow down or crash, and in some cases, if that file is more than a certain size, Excel will actually give you a warning that it's only a partial view of the data. You could also import the data into a Microsoft Access table. You could open it in Tableau or other business intelligence tool. You could open that data set in SAS, SPSS, or other statistical tool. You could import the data into a new table in a SQL database. And the key is to determine the following. Is this a permanent or a throwaway data set? If it's a permanent data set, you're going to go through different tasks such as modeling that data, creating the data table. If this is just something that you want to look at to explore the data and it's going to be a throwaway data set, you would probably want to do this using the quickest way possible and using a tool outside of a database. You also want to determine the time that you have needed to explore this data, and any security or storage requirements. What if my data is dirty or incomplete? Well, you may have to clean the data. There are tools such as Tableau Prep or other tools to do this. And when is it okay to do this? Well, it depends on what you're looking for. So if you know that the data has mistakes in it, for example, let's say you have state data, and it's actually national data, and some of the values are the states, or even the abbreviation for the states. And you notice that for Pennsylvania, some have Pennsylvania spelled P-E-N-N-A, and some it's spelled with the abbreviation P-A. It's okay to clean that and make that all the same of PA. What you don't want to do is remove outliers or remove data that you may think is incorrect, but could change the outcome of any type of analysis. Also think about null values. These are fields that are basically empty. Columns with multiple values, multiple columns with similar values, and columns that have repurposed meaning because at some point over time, somebody decided to use that column for another purpose. And now that you have a data set, here's a data analytics introduction. Here's a definition for data analytics. Keep in mind that we have a course for health data analysis, and this is just an introduction as part of the database course. Data analytics is many times undertaken as a 6-step process: understanding the problem, extracting the data, cleaning and preparing the data, doing descriptive statistics, then doing statistical analysis, and then disseminating that information or the results. So let's take a deeper dive into problem understanding. There are numerous data sets made publicly available for research purposes. The utility of these data sets is actually endless. Software developers can use the data to develop and test websites and mobile apps. Consumers can use the data to better understand their communities and healthcare providers, and researchers can use the data for any number of projects. Data extraction is oftentimes stored in relational databases for efficiency purposes. It's more efficient to link related fields than to have redundant data that is stored in multiple tables in the same database. Here's some sample data types for the MySQL relational database management system. Character data, sometimes we call this text or string. This would be letters and numbers. So car, C-H-A-R, here's a description, and an example could be the letter F. It could also be the word female. Varchar contains character string data with a length of n, where n can be a value from 1 to 255. So this could be any number of alphanumeric characters. It could be like whole sentences, full names, anything that is up to 255 characters. And then other times we see text, which is very similar to car or varchar, and it depends on what flavor of SQL you're using, versus another type of database, which would be Access, and Access has some slightly different data types. Data preparation is a process typically required to prepare extracted data for analysis. Descriptive statistics is defined here, and typically in any statistical tool like R, SAS, SPSS, there's a quick and easy way to run descriptive statistics that gives you some quick information about your data so that you can see if your data has a normal frequency distribution. And here's some other examples for descriptive stats. When you have nominal data, this is categorical data, Ordinal data is where the categories are mutually exclusive and do not have a natural order. Interval data is a naturally numeric data where the distance between two values has meaning, but multiplying values and zero value has no interpretation. And ratio data, and you can read through these definitions and examples here. Statistical analysis, other types of inferential procedures and techniques, t-tests, ANOVAs, which is analysis of variance, regression, and other types of analysis that will be covered in the data analytics course. And once the statistics have been calculated, it's important to interpret the results, draw conclusions, and share that information. That information can also be visualized in many different types of plots or maps. Open source software is software that can be freely used, changed, and shared. So for example, we tend to use MySQL as an open source database platform as opposed to the costly Oracle relational database management platform.